Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. The White House briefs reporters today as the government shutdown inches towards the longest in U.S. history, with tension over SNAP food benefits beginning to boil over. GOP gubernatorial candidate Jack Ciattarelli telling NTD how he feels on election eve, what he promises if he's elected, and what his supporters tell NTD they want from their governor. Mayoral candidate Cuomo says socialism has never worked anywhere on the globe. Not Venezuela, not Cuba, it's not going to work in New York City. We discussed the fundamental principles of socialism and what's it leading to. Political and sports prediction platform Kalshi is coming under fire. Some say the predictions can affect election voting. And the New York Gaming Commission is accusing it of being an illegal sports betting platform. A new report suggests nearly $2 billion from foreign sources were donated to back left-wing groups and policies in the United States, with at least one foreign organization connected to the Chinese Communist Party. A French child protection association has accused Shein of participating in pedocriminality. This comes after the company failed to remove childlike sex dolls from its platform.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. As a 35-day stalemate continues in Congress, the food assistance program SNAP has become a contentious point in the government shutdown. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt shared updates today during a White House briefing.
The administration is fully complying with the court order. I just spoke to the president about it. The recipients of these SNAP benefits need to understand it's going to take some time to receive this money because the Democrats have forced the administration into a very untenable position. We are digging into a contingency fund that is supposed to be for emergencies, catastrophes, for war. And the president does not want to have to tap into this fund in the future, and that's what he was referring to in his Truth Social post. So the Department of Agriculture, as for the latest SNAP payment in the judge's order, put out guidance to states today on how to get that money to the recipients of SNAP. But it's going to take some time. The best way to get the full amount of SNAP benefits to those beneficiaries is for Democrats to reopen the government. So to
Yesterday, the Trump administration said it will pay out partial SNAP food assistance benefits for November after rulings from two federal judges. But on Truth Social this morning, the president said SNAP benefits will only be given when Democrats open up the government and not before. For the 14th time, the Senate failed to advance a House-passed continuing resolution to reopen the government. Now, at 35 days, this government shutdown is tied for the longest in U.S. history. The briefing comes at the same time millions of voters are headed to the polls in several key elections in New York, New Jersey, Virginia, and California.
The White House is working on an executive order to strengthen our elections in this country and to ensure that there cannot be blatant fraud, as we've seen in California with their universal mail-in voting system. It's absolutely true that there's fraud in California's elections. It's just a fact. It is just a fact. They have a universal mail-in voting system, which we know is ripe for fraud. And if you want to deny...
Multiple bomb threats were made today against polling sites across New Jersey, forcing some polling areas to stop temporarily. New Jersey Attorney General Matthew Platkin said that bomb threats were emailed to polling areas in Bergen, Essex, Mercer, Middlesex, Monmouth, Ocean, and Passaic counties. Platkin urged residents to call 911 if they see any suspicious activity. New Jersey's Lieutenant Governor said there were no more credible threats at this time. Attorney General Pam Bondi said the Justice Department was investigating. Both of New Jersey's gubernatorial candidates condemned the bomb threats. Democrat candidate Mikey Sherrill described the threats as, quote, a clear attempt to undermine our democratic system and intimidate New Jerseyans from going to the polls to exercise their voting rights. A spokesperson for Republican candidate Jack Ciattarelli said in a statement, quote, there's no place in politics for nonsense like this. Today is Election Day in the Big Apple, and President Trump made it clear who he wants to see as the next mayor. Trump urged voters yesterday to vote for Andrew Cuomo in the highly watched race. He wants to prevent Zohran Mamdani, a self-described democratic socialist, from becoming the next head of the nation's largest city. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the race.
Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic Party nominee, was leading in polls on the eve of Election Day. He was heavily favored to become the next mayor. President Trump chimed in on the contest on Truth Social yesterday, writing, "I would much rather see a Democrat who has had a record of success win than a communist with no experience and a record of complete and total failure." Trump said he was considering reducing federal funding to the city of over 8 million residents to the very minimum as required if they elected Mamdani. Trump wrote, "It can only get worse with a communist at the helm, and I don't want to send, as president, good money after bad." The president says he strongly believes New York City will be a, quote, complete and total economic and social disaster should Mamdani win. The race also includes Republican Curtis Sliwa, who is running far behind Mamdani and Cuomo, who ran as an independent candidate after losing the Democratic primary to Mamdani. Trump warned voters not to vote for Sliwa, calling it a vote for Mamdani. Cuomo yesterday said he believes he had the momentum, posting the results of an Atlas Intel poll which concluded on Monday. It found 39% of voters favored the former governor. Mamdani garnered 44% of the vote, while Sliwa took in 16%. Atlas Intel has a track record of being among the most accurate pollsters in both the 2020 and 2024 presidential elections. Mamdani responded to Trump's criticism in an interview on CNN yesterday.
I think you can clearly see that Donald Trump is threatened by our campaign. He's threatened by it because, like his, we've diagnosed the crisis in working class New Yorkers' lives, the cost of living. But unlike him, we're actually going to deliver on that.
It's impossible to think that New York City can have a communist mayor. He's a communist. He's not a socialist, by the way. There's a big difference.
The Democratic nominee released this video yesterday to remind New Yorkers of his vision of socialism for the city.
There are many who say that a democratic socialist vision of governance for New York is impossible, that our ideas are untested. To them, I answer, we need look only to our past for proof of how socialism can shape our future.
Mamdani promises to Trump-proof New York City by strengthening its sanctuary status to shield illegal immigrants. Elon Musk also threw his support behind Cuomo, posting to X yesterday for people to vote for the former governor. President Trump is also making a last-minute push in New Jersey and Virginia ahead of today's governor's races, holding tele-rallies. Trump wrote on Truth Social, "Why would anyone vote for New Jersey and Virginia gubernatorial candidates Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger when they want transgender for everybody, men playing in women's sports, high crime, and the most expensive energy prices almost anywhere in the world?" Republican Jack Ciattarelli is running for governor of New Jersey, while Winsome Earl Sears is vying to head the state of Virginia. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Candidate Zohran Mamdani is now responding to yesterday's message by President Trump suggesting he plans to stand up to the president. And Andrew Cuomo, meanwhile, is criticizing his opponent, saying the self-described Democrat socialist is too extreme.
Well, I think what you're seeing is a civil war in the Democratic Party that has been brewing for a while. You have an extreme radical left that is run by the socialists, that is challenging what they would call moderate Democrats. I'm a moderate Democrat. Democrats are not extreme socialists. We're not against the police.
I look forward to representing those New Yorkers and look forward to fighting for every single dollar this city is owed. What we see in the language of Donald Trump is a premise as if it is his decision on whether or not to fund a city the very money that this city is owed. And I look forward to utilizing every single tool at my disposal as the next mayor of this city to fight for the people.
Last night, Trump said it is highly unlikely that he'll be contributing federal funds other than the very minimum as required if Mamdani wins the election. In response, Mamdani says that he'll, quote, not be intimidated by the president. The Democratic candidate also describes Trump's statements as threats to the city. Mamdani says he'll defend New Yorkers against those alleged threats by the president. Some New Yorkers are sharing their choices for the next mayor and the issues they care about the most in their decision making. Take a listen.
I voted for Mamdani.
Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah, who not necessarily we like.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
Cuomo. As someone who's been living in New York City for over 10 years, affordability, safety, making New York feel like home for so many people who've been living here for decades, for all New Yorkers, for working families, for business people, for immigrants, for underrepresented people. So it's really important that we have a mayor that represents all types of New Yorkers and makes New Yorkers a place where everyone can thrive and work and live happily, healthily, and safely.
It's very important. I'm a capitalist, so I think that is pretty simple.
And safety.
Oh yeah,
Safety
totally safety.
Yeah.
Oh, we had to live here through COVID, so we know how important it is to have representation of police in the street. We know that basically when you want to raise a price of something like hourly wage, you need small businesses to support it. People run out of town when things can't be afforded, and too many people left the city already. We need to rebuild it.
If Mamdani wins, is that ultra-far left or socialist candidates have a real place in American politics, and like while every voice is valid, it's going to draw the Democratic Party too far to the left, and that is not going to be good for the Democratic Party.
Republican candidate Jack Ciattarelli tells NTD how he feels about the tight New Jersey governor's race at his last night rally before the election. And New Jersey locals at his rally share what they want from their governor. NTD's Mari Otsu brings us more from Bridgewater, New Jersey, where she's standing by for Ciattarelli's watch party tonight.
All eyes are on the outcome of what is now a very tight New Jersey governor's race as a key indicator of whether President Trump's rise will carry in what's traditionally been a blue state.
Feeling really good. It's my old hometown. The energy's been great. We're going to win tomorrow.
Republican gubernatorial candidate Jack Ciattarelli held his last rally before Election Day in Raritan, New Jersey, Monday night.
We need a Jersey guy. My opponent's not even from New Jersey. We've had enough of that. Let's elect somebody who's from New Jersey, someone who knows what's going on, and somebody who knows how to fix it.
Joined by his family on stage in Raritan, Ciattarelli touts his deep roots in the state of New Jersey and promises affordability if he's elected governor.
Governor Murphy said that he wanted to make New Jersey California of the East. Mikey Sherrill will continue that. It's those policies that have made New Jersey unaffordable, where we have the highest taxes in the entire country. There will be no middle class because middle class won't be able to afford to live here. If you love New Jersey like I love New Jersey, vote Jack Ciattarelli.
I'm a retired high school principal. Jack used to come to our school and speak to the students, give speeches. He was very energetic. He was open to the kids' questions. And we hit it off. There was a lot of simpatico there. Our taxes are too high, and I know New Jerseyans feel that way, and they've felt that way for years. I truly believe he's going to make a difference there.
Well, I used to be a registered Democrat for 20-something years, or maybe even longer. And the reason why I crossed over was because the Democrats aren't doing nothing here in New Jersey that people look like us. So that's why I crossed over to support Jack.
Yeah, we're both sophomores in high school, yeah. And we're big fans of Jack, obviously. If we could vote, we would vote for him. I saw firsthand, I've met him a couple of times, and he's just a genuine guy. I mean, you could say I'm biased, but I feel that Jack is the more genuine politician, and he actually listens to people, not just people in general, but people like us, people who can't vote.
I feel like Ciattarelli is a good choice for the students because he actually listens. Every time I've spoken to him, he's always been a very open and honest and kind man.
Ciattarelli's son Jake, an Army captain deployed to Kuwait, surprised his father with a visit at his first campaign event of the day.
It feels great. My father's my role model. He's my rock. He's my best friend. It's been tough being away from him for 8 months. But seeing everything that he's doing from that far away and being able to be here for the finish line, it's a great feeling. He's an incredibly genuine man. He's patient, and he listens. I think that's one of the most important things that draws people to him. When you listen to people and understand what their problems are, people trust you.
Reporting from Bridgewater, New Jersey, Mari Otsu, NTD News.
Voting is underway for races in New York, New Jersey, and Virginia as the government shutdown enters day 35, matching the record for the longest shutdown in U.S. history. Joining us to discuss is Mike Leon, host of Can We Please Talk podcast and director of strategy at the Free and Equal Elections Foundation. And we have Tony Kinnett, national correspondent for the Daily Signal and host of the Tony Kinnett Cast radio show and podcast. So good to see you guys as always. Mike, I'll start with you this week. What are your expectations as to how much longer the shutdown will continue, because Senate Majority Leader John Thune said he's optimistic that the government shutdown could actually come to an end this week.
Well, first off, good to see you guys on this Tuesday. Everyone go exercise your civic duty if you live in those states, especially in California, too, with the Prop 50 on the ballot. In terms of the government shutdown, we talked about this last week. I'm 2 days away now from flying. I've seen all the different delays at the airports with the air traffic controllers. I've seen different reports from airline correspondents across networks talking about how this government shutdown is having a real impact with respect to not only travel delays, but obviously people not getting paid while working. And we've talked about this a bunch here. I don't know anybody that wants to work for free for 35 days, as you just mentioned, Don, right, which ties the longest in our history. So do I see anything coming to fruition here over these next few days? As I mentioned last time, I don't see any incentive for either side right now to come to this table. I do see incentives for them to keep running the cameras and keep going on every show possible and talking about what the other side needs to do, but they're not talking to each other. Marjorie Taylor Greene went on The View today. John Fetterman was on Sean Hannity's show last night. They definitely know where the studios are for some of these places. I wish they knew where the Capitol building was so they can actually get together and work on this and get a resolution so we can start paying employees and start getting things back into motion. Because remember, once the government shutdown is over, Don and Tony, things don't just go right back and snap back into place. Now we have to undo the last 35 plus days of the damage that has been caused by all of this, and the people that have been furloughed from all of this have to come return back to work. So there's a lot that needs to uncoil from all of this. So I would like for them to stop running to every camera available and actually start talking to each other.
So Tony, maybe you're a bit more optimistic about how long this shutdown will continue?
I think that for sure, and of course, good afternoon to you both as usual. I think that there actually is going to be a lot that hinges on this particular election as to whether or not one side caves, and caves soon. And by the way, some of my estimates for that come in things that I've made as kind of predictions over the last couple of weeks, that you're going to see some of the more moderate, some of the more purple state Democrat senators eventually flake away. Originally, the Hill speculated this includes John Ossoff of Georgia, Gary Peters of Michigan, Elisa Slotkin of Michigan. I don't know if I agree with that one. Maggie Hassan, New Hampshire, Peter Welch of Vermont, Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin, which I think was a very good prediction. Well, last night, according to Politico's reporter Jordan Carney from their congressional reporting team, said that they saw a lot of those individuals in the Capitol Hill basement. So, maybe to your wish, Mike, I'd say that we actually are seeing some individuals meet together and say, hey, look, this looks really bad for Michigan Democrats. This looks really bad for Georgia Democrats. John Ossoff, the poor man, is sweating more every time I see him on camera. That's not a joke. That's not me teasing. I mean, there's a lot of nerve that goes behind this. I think Lisa Murkowski has reached out to moderates as well. But it's whether or not the elections, I think, maybe in New Jersey, go to Republican or Democrat, whether it goes to Jack or Mickey, that we'll see one side start to make either caving motions or, God forbid, Trump gets his wish on the filibuster.
So, Mike, as you know, Vice President J.D. Vance has said that Democrats are holding the government hostage, right? You've heard that. And you can't reward that behavior. Those are his comments. And as you know, millions of people are being impacted due to this shutdown. Why should this be used as leverage for political negotiations?
Well, why? I mean, they use it. You just said what he said, and that's exactly what they're doing. Everyone does it to a certain extent. And the analogy I like to use is the seesaw analogy, right? Like one side's up, one side's down. Or a better analogy, right? You hurt your knee or you break your entire leg and it shatters in half. Like both are bad, right? You scratched your knee up pretty good, but the other one, the knee is gone completely. And that's what we have right here, unfortunately, with these two parties right now going back and forth. Republicans, and Tony and I have debated this a bunch, Republicans control the government. They control all three levers of the government right now. It is true what Tony's going to say about the continuing resolutions, and there's been clean CRs that have not been passed. Unfortunately, though, that only punts the football to January, no pun intended, where we'd have NFL playoffs, and then we'd have me and Tony on Tuesday talking about when is the government going to actually work on this funding the government through the entirety of 26 fiscal budget and beyond. And then we're going to have more of the politics being played, Don, to Tony's point, because the midterm elections are in 26. So there is a wide range of things that are happening here. Both parties, Democrats control a minority vote that is essential to get to 60. But Republicans can circumvent all of that by doing the nuclear option, to what Tony said, and actually reopening the government. Neither wants to do neither, because it does help them gain, like you said, political movement with their voters. Democratic voters know, hey, we don't control any of the numbers. Republicans control everything. Remember the mandate? They kept telling us a mandate, a mandate. Republicans can do the exact same thing. Hey, 53 plus 7 is 60. We're missing 7. They are the 7. So they keep doing it. Why do they keep doing it? Well, that's why we all have jobs, because we get to talk about this and we get to talk about the political football that goes back and forth.
Okay, so Tony, your comments, and then I want to move the conversation on to the elections in New York City.
So, I mean, Mike, I think this is one of the ways that we also agree on this particular economics of politics conversation here. The Trump administration economically is simply Bill Clinton, but more socially conservative and protectionist. Both parties right now are essentially on the line of Republicans want to spend a ton of money on defense. They want to spend a ton of money on particular subsidization programs. And then the Democrats want to spend a ton of money on completely different programs. And that's not long-term feasible. Of course, we're reaching, I mean, again, looking at the SNAP benefit change and who's been eligible and on SNAP benefits since the Obama administration. I mean, going from, what was it, 7.5 million before his first term to now through the last couple of administrations, you know, Trump and Biden included, 42 million. That is a lot of Americans that are on yet another government entitlement program, some who absolutely need it, some who absolutely don't, as we've seen from some of the cases of fraud. And again, that's not a blanket sweep statement. That's just saying the amount of money we're spending on these programs is increasing. And when you look at the kicking the eternal football, you know, just further down the field, say, well, we'll see if we ever get to an end zone. Yeah, the end zone is coming. And I think that while I'm not a fan of the nuclear option, because then you want to see political theater and just one side gets all, then yeah, I mean, the nuclear option becoming reigning supreme will essentially just makes the Senate another House of Representatives. I mean, it already is that way after the failure of the amendment that removes the state election of senators through the legislature. So again, yeah, I think a lot of this is political theater, but I'm a little more optimistic that both sides are actually losing favor over this. This is one of I talked to Ken Cuccinelli, former Attorney General of Virginia, about that this morning, that both sides are going down in approval rating over this shutdown. Everyone's just tired of Congress.
Okay, so Mike, I want to talk about the election in New York City for mayor. As you know, Zohran Mamdani is ahead in most polls, likely to get more votes than anyone else. But the interesting part is that he won't, at least very likely, not more than half of all votes, right? And this hasn't happened since 1969. How are you looking at that, Mike?
Yeah, well, I'm looking at the mayor's race a couple of different ways. I love the package that you guys played before we came on, especially in New York and New Jersey, 2 states that I lived in. I went to college in New Jersey, because those packages convinced me that we need not only civics education in this country, but we need people to get a little bit more informed about the issues, especially when it comes to the buzzwords of socialism and communism, as the son of a kid who left a communist country that is now an authoritarian regime. So I'm going to leave that right there, because there's a lot of terms and people love to throw the buzzwords out there. But in terms of Zohran winning this election, RCP, my friends over at Real Clear Politics, Tom and Andrew and them, they do a great job with the polling. It shows he's around 46%. He's probably going to win this by a good wide margin. And then I think from there, what we're going to see over the next couple of months of Zohran Mamdani being the mayor will be over scrutinized. You want to talk about political theater. Every single decision or any type of granular decision that's made, especially when it comes to New York City, arguably one of the biggest cities in the world, is going to get over magnified, especially if, to Tony's point, tonight goes the way of all of the Democrats, meaning they win the Virginia governor's race, meaning they win the New Jersey governor's race with Mikey Sherrill, and they win the New York City mayor's race with Zohran Mamdani. Everything now is going to be, is Zohran the future of the party? We saw conversations like this when Eric Adams was winning in the primary against Andrew Yang, and then all of a sudden now you can't find Eric Adams on a Democrat milk carton. He wouldn't be on one. He's missing. So, and I think that's the problem now with Zohran when it comes to this election. What I want people to understand out there, first off, Nobody's fleeing New York City. And if you do flee New York City like I did, it's because you can't afford to live in New York City. It's because the apartment I lived in that was $3,300 a month is now $5,700 a month. And my salary has not gone up, Don. If anything, it's stayed flat. That's the reason why people are leaving New York City. It's not because he wants to defund the police. No, he wants to keep them at the $33,750 that they have allocated. He just wants to add more community enforcement and mental health service providers. So that way, like we have recently with the NFL running back Doug Martin that had a mental health breakdown, police were called to the situation. There was no mental health officers that were called, and he lost his life after dealing with police in that encounter. That happened in California. In New York City, we need to have more mental health professionals that are available on resource to be able to deal with these issues so they can help police. It's not about getting rid of police. So my message to all New Yorkers out there, calm down for a second. You're not going anywhere, Meghan McCain. You're not leaving that apartment. I know where you guys live. Like, everybody calm down. You're going to stay in New York City. You're going to be fine. They did this with Dinkins. They did this with de Blasio. You're going to be fine.
Okay, so Tony, maybe you can now speak to Mamdani's policies. How popular or unpopular do you think it is with the electorate?
So I'm hearing a little bit of have your cake and eat it tooism, and I've seen this from a lot of the Democrat strategists who are nowhere as deep thinking about issues or as honest about issues as Mike is. And Mike is the cream of the crop when it comes to actually thinking through things to the other side. And he has said a lot of those things before, and I'm not just trying to fluff him up here. There are a lot of strategists over the last couple of months who have essentially taken when Zoran has said, defund the police, and an earlier moment said, I want fewer police officers, his words. And then after he was pushed and shoved and prodded by, you know, PR agencies and CARE, which funded a large portion of his campaign, we're now finding out due to comments by Linda Sarsour. And then, of course, through some current officials, now he's been forced to kind of walk those things back. You can't really have both ways here in his particular campaign, where he's run a very aggressively progressive campaign that has been radical in a lot of its racialism, that has been radical in his proposals to allot funding by racial measures, to allot services by racial measures. And then he hasn't really gone back on a lot of those things. There is some damage that he can do as the mayor of New York City. And to the no one's fleeing New York, there are a lot of businesses that have begun sealing up deals and closing things early. I would suggest that Cuomo here, as much as I don't like him, missed a huge opportunity. Let us say that in a particular instance that there is a Don Donnie that's running for mayor somewhere, and he's really, really radical. Then I, as the Republican candidate in this instance, and Mike, as the Democrat candidate, a coalition ticket of moderates who wants to see things paused while we get some of the craziness of the temperature turned down, is an effective ticket that I think a lot of New Yorkers wanted. And unfortunately, Curtis Sliwa and Andrew Cuomo's egos were far too big, and it's likely to divide the ticket and cost a lot of New Yorkers an election result that they didn't want, like you said, Don, since back in '69.
Okay, Mike, you probably have a response, right? Can we hear it?
No, Tony's the best. He's really good at saying a lot of these things. And not only that, the only thing I will take umbrage with is the connotation around radical. He is right about some of the things that Zoran Mamdani has said that he's had to walk back, right? There are certain things, and especially the campaign donations. His campaign has returned back some foreign donations that they got recently, and they were getting killed by that, by the campaign finance board saying, hey, these are donations that they should have returned months ago. So there's always some truth in all of that. And I do agree about the coalition building. Here's the problem that I have, right? Republicans have never run a serious candidate outside of Giuliani years ago. And Sliwa was able to get up that Republican ticket when you had an opportunity, to Tony's point, given off of what happened in 24, 25 running against an inexperienced Democratic socialist. You can still use the buzzwords when you're talking about the socialism, but you can harp on the inexperienced part of this and what Republicans can do to change that, versus Andrew Cuomo was a fixture in New York politics and has drawn the ire of the president in 2020. He left with 2 scandals, not only in terms of his decision-making on policies with COVID, but also scandals in terms of sexual harassment. You had a clear opportunity there to actually give a serious third candidate. And look, Curtis Sliwa has been in my life since like 1981, Don. I was born in Long Island Jewish Hospital. I've known about Kurt Sewell for forever. I've known about that stupid beret for forever. And that's the problem. Anybody would tell you, and Donald Trump alluded to this in the Oval Office, that beret gives off a connotation that you are not serious. The guardian angels are not a serious thing. You have never worked in any type of public office. You never even tried to gain some type of office like an assemblyman, like what Zoran did. So when you don't put a serious candidate out there like that, unfortunately, this is what you get. And I think Republicans had that chance, to Tony's point, because of Cuomo, the scandals, inexperienced Democratic socialists. Hey, by the way, I'm a Republican. I believe in capitalism, law and order. Boom, give me somebody serious. And maybe New Yorkers would have had a little bit more of an actual
Jack Ciattarelli,
option
for
here.
instance.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, Tony. I want to get your opinion on Mamdani's policies, specifically, for example, freeze on rent increases or free childcare and no bus fares. What do you think about those policies?
So, well, there's the pragmatic and the real, and then there's in theory. So in theory, those policies, when they're tried, they don't work. They don't. They burnt fun little flats of New York City down in the 70s over insurance issues. You have situations where the free bus fare was tried in places like St. Louis. It failed. It's been tried in other cities in the United States and around the world, and it doesn't do very well at all. There's just a lack of respect when things are just given kind of free off the walk. They don't actually provide the counter incentive that is supposedly given. They've talked about that here in Indianapolis. It really isn't going anywhere. As to the free childcare and the rent freezing, he doesn't have the ability to do that kind of rote in fiat as mayor. And even in the case where he did have such authority on freezing the rent for housing, he doesn't even have the functional ability over 100% of that kind of housing, only 25%. And it would be a board independent of his control that would have to approve the various means and measures to freeze rents in certain cases. And he was also forced on the grocery store, the government, the state-run, city-run grocery store measure, to walk that back today on CNN because he just doesn't have any kind of a meaningful pathway forward. So what does he have left to really anchor support for his base? He has law enforcement in New York City. And that's where my concerns really come through. When you push the guy who has all of these goals to accomplish, we saw this with Trump in the first term, right? He had certain things he wanted to do and he couldn't do. So then he ended up overcorrecting into the few areas he did have control over. And they got way more exacerbated than perhaps if he had actually accomplished all of those things in a measured way. The spending of political momentum, if you catch what I'm trying to get at there.
Okay, Mike, we have to wrap up. If you have any real quick comments, maybe 30 seconds that you'd like to share.
Well, I think for tonight, I'll be watching the way all these races play out, because to Tony's point, I hadn't even thought about it with the government shutdown. Maybe it does have a needle mover if we see Spanberger win by, plus 8, 9, 10 percentage points. Mamdani clearly wins by the 15 percentage points right now. And if Mikey Sherrill, I actually think Jack is going to win tonight, but if Mikey Sherrill were to win by such a margin in New Jersey, mainly because of Phil Murphy and his approval rating being so low that he's a Democratic incumbent, I would think that Jack would win. But if all three go to Democrats in such wide margins, I do think that it sends a message, to Tony's point, to voters out there that they're maybe not happy with the way the Trump administration is doing things. And it could lend those moderate Democratic senators, maybe even some moderate Republicans like Lisa Murkowski and them, to say, hey, how do we talk to each other now? Because we lost in a big way come election night.
All right, Mike, Tony, always great to speak with you guys. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Has democratic socialism become more mainstream or more widely accepted? Where have Mamdani's policies been implemented before, and what has happened? We have more after this break.
Election season is back. Socialism is on the ballot in New York, and Trump-backed Republicans in Virginia and New Jersey face their Democratic opponents for governor with results that could impact each party's future. Watch these key races and more during our live special coverage with live data analysis and on-the-ground teams. Join NTD's Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer on Election 2025, tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NTD.
That truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. Get tickets now at shenyun.com.
What are toxins? How do they get into our bodies? We are constantly being exposed to toxins in our environment. I've had detox protocol programs in my clinic more than 20 years, helping countless people. MixFix is a custom formulated, full-spectrum organic detox product to achieve better health and overall function. Detoxifying your body 3 to 4 times per year may be the single most important thing you can do. Just scan the QR code and detox your body today.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9, the highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now. With your gift of $19 a month, we'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Today is election day, and Democratic socialist Zohran Mamdani is in the lead for New York City mayor. Joining us to discuss is Joshua Phillips, senior investigative reporter for the Epoch Times and host of Crossroads on Epoch TV. So, Josh, thank you for joining us today. Always great to see you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, so let's talk about socialism, democratic socialism specifically. In your view, how do you feel about whether this has become more popular, more mainstream, or more widely accepted?
Well, you know, the Democrats right now are kind of in a difficult position. The Democratic Socialists of America is technically a third party, but they really tried to integrate themselves into the main line of the Democratic Party because they can't win elections. So what they've done over the years, they've infiltrated the Democratic Party, they run under the Democrat ticket, they put their candidates as Democrats, and the Democrats, they haven't really wanted to split their party on behalf of them. The DSA, Democratic Socialist of America elements, though, they represent the more extreme kind of progressive, some might call it, parts of the party. The things representing more outright socialism. The things representing, you know, gender politics, race politics, these are DSA issues. Whereas the old school Democrats used to be more like the big tent. If you go back to, you know, 90s, 2000s, look where the Democrats were, like Trump used to be a Democrat. RFK Jr., maybe he's still a Democrat. Guys like Joe Rogan used to be Democrats. And so you do have kind of this big tent, 80% in the middle, that represents what the Democratic Party used to be. And some argue that the extreme positions of the DSA, they might work in local elections, but it might be a real gamble for Democrats to run with.
Okay, so how would you classify Zohran Mamdani's policies?
Zohran Mamdani is going for more, I think, legit socialism. But the reality is he can only do it so much under the existing system. If you want to have real socialism, like pure socialism, you need to dominate everything. Which is one of the reasons why socialists often say, well, it wasn't real socialism or it wasn't real communism. Just doing it in New York City, he won't have the ability to fully implement pure socialism. And he's walked back a lot of his statements. He said, for example, that he's not for like defunding the police. People pull up old posts from him. He very often talked about defunding the police. There are some mixed reports over his, government-run, again, I'm going to call them food halls or grocery stores. A lot of media have actually falsely quoted him saying he wants to give free food. Maybe that's part of it because, you could say food stamps are part of that. But what he's talking about are government-run grocery stores that would offer lower prices. The reality is when you do this, it's never sustainable because it messes up the entire free market. What you're likely to have is the lack of the insight into the free market from supply and demand. And you run into the same problems you have in every socialist country, which is the things in demand fly off the shelves, people buy it, people resell it. If he makes it too low of a cost, what's going to happen? You're going to have people, if, for example, it's more expensive in New Jersey, driving into New York, buying it in New York, and reselling it in New Jersey. It's going to upset the entire free market, and you're going to end up with shortages.
So can you give us some examples, real-world examples, where his policies are similar to his policies that have been implemented elsewhere, and what has happened?
Yeah. So in the United States, there actually have been experiments with, you call them like government-run grocery stores, or sometimes usually they're run by like nonprofits. And what results in it is basically poorly run places. They close down very quickly, typically. You end up with large amounts of theft, especially if they say they're not going to prosecute or go after crime. People just steal it because why not? You can look at California, where they were experimenting with light on crime policies as it related to like storefronts. And what happened? Right? Anything under like $900 is a misdemeanor. What happens? People go in and they steal everything they want because there's no punishment for it. You end up with resellers. This is one of the issues, for example, that New York has dealt with like cigarette taxes. It creates a massive black market where people just buy it in one place and sell it in another because you have the free market functioning outside the system. The other thing you have, of course, is just badly run systems where, the issue you have with government-run systems as opposed to privately run, if you want to have something work in the private market, you have to have a few things. You have to have it so that it's sustainable, people want to buy from it. You need to have good service so people want to go there and don't go to your competitors. When you make it government-run, you remove all of the information that educates what is demanded by the free market, quality of service and price.
I mean, what are the core fundamental principles of socialism? Is it just free stuff for those of us that is not so well versed in the subject?
There are different degrees of socialism. So, on the lighter end of it, there's like state capitalism. Technically, the Nazis, the National Socialist Party, the Nazis in Germany, they were technically like lighter socialism, which was a mixed model economy. They still had some free market principles, but a lot of socialist policies. And the way the Nazis worked is actually closer to the type of socialism light you see a lot of people trying to put in place in the United States. And what was it? Under the Nazis, of course, you had the mixed model economies, what they call state interventionism. And so you'd have, for example, businesses where the government would assign people to run the businesses, and you'd have a partially private, partially public system. That is light socialism. And so actually, again, I'm not talking about the race policies of the Nazis, but the economic policies. A lot of these socialists in America, in terms of economic policy, are closer to the Nazi party. But if you go to like real heavy socialism, that's when you get closer to actual communism. And so heavier socialism is when you get to like Stalinist type policies, breadline type policies. And if you get to that end of it, what is really socialism? Socialism is when you put communism into government. Communism is technically the negation of systems. It is not technically a government program, but you can implement communist policies within it. There are different extents of it. More extreme policies will have things like for like social divisions. More extreme policies will have things on, again, gender policies, agitation policies, where you try to view one person as your enemy, one person as your ally. We have seen this in the United States with gender policies and race policies. Every communist country has some kind of narrative with that, whether it's the evil billionaires or the evil kulaks, like they had, of course, of the wealthy peasants in Soviet Russia, whether it's the Jews like the Nazis had, who are deemed the enemies, whether it's the educated class, for example, in Cambodia, whether it's even in the United States where they called, the cis white male the enemy of the people, or whether now they talk about the evil billionaires as being the enemies of, the markets.
So how do you know when socialism has changed into communism? How do you know when communism is here?
Well, so this is where a lot of people get confused between socialism and communism. Socialism is the form communism takes when implemented into government. But true communism is only achieved with the negation of systems. So in order to achieve quote-unquote real communism, the socialist state would need to basically implode. You would need to basically destroy all the existing institutions to quote-unquote achieve communism. And so communism is not designed to work. It's designed to destroy. When a government becomes communist, they become a socialist government. You could say they're educated or inspired by a communist type, ideology or principle, but it will always be socialism when put into practice. So, and again, there are different degrees of it. I'm not saying Mondami is going to make New York City full-on communist. He's only going to be able to do it to a certain extent.
So you gave examples earlier of how socialism leads to problems, right? And history has shown that over and over. So why do we keep trying it?
Well, you'd think people would learn by now.
That's my question.
I would say the reason is because socialism claims to offer the solution to human suffering. And when you're told that, hey, people are starving, the solution is to give them free food. People are suffering, the solution is to kill or eliminate the people causing the suffering. There are people who view this as being like the compassionate thing to do. But what they don't really understand is that it does not work. You don't create wealth by targeting the wealthy. You create wealth by creating incentives or helping the poor build themselves up. You don't create wealth by tearing things down. You create wealth by building things. And so socialism is just based on redistribution of what is already there. Socialism really can't create wealth unless it feeds on the wealthy. But as soon as you feed on the wealthy, you remove the incentive, people stop bothering to do it, and it flattens society. Socialism is for the downward trend. And so, you could argue that there are problems within capitalism. A lot of people, including myself, would argue the problems that people point to in capitalism are usually from state interventionist policies. The reason, for example, why housing costs are so high, mostly because of red tape on new construction. If you want to fix the housing problem where people can't afford rent, remove these state interventionist policies which stem from socialism that prevent us from building new homes or allow monopolies to form. If you let the free market function, it means that when there's demand, you create supply, not that you restrict supply, increase demand, and then strangle society through it. So socialism always does not work because it can only work as long as you can feed on the capitalist.
Okay, just one last question, Josh. Do you think there will be a big impact, or maybe you don't think there will be a big impact if Mamdani, in fact, wins this race and becomes the next mayor for New York City?
There will be a big impact if Mamdani wins. I don't think the impact will be that heavy in New York. And it will be. I mean, it will be to an extent. It's not going to be a whole lot worse than New York was, I think, under COVID, to be honest. Because he's going to be stopped from doing a lot of things because of the risk of losing government funding from the federal level. Trump is probably going to put his foot on the brakes and say, hey, you can't do that. It's probably not going to be a whole lot worse than California, to be honest, where they have a lot of these policies he's talking about already in place. And the other reality, too, is the city council in New York is already very far left. They already practice a lot of these policies. But the bigger impact is actually going to be more for what it means on the midterms and the future of the Democratic Party. Because right now, what do you have? You have really the Democratic Party looking for its new leadership, and you have them looking at AOC and Bernie Sanders, both of whom have been more on the Democratic Socialists of America side. This is really a battle, I think, for the future of the Democratic Party and the types of candidates who they choose as their front runners, which is why Cuomo is pushing back against Mamdani, which is why Nancy Pelosi is pushing back against Mamdani. The Democrats, I think, understand that, yeah, you might have a socialist win in a local election, but it's not going to work for the big ones. And the Democrats, if they go too far to the extreme, which is what the risk is here, they're going to lose the middle.
Okay, well, Josh, always well said. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's take a look at the lineup tonight. Polls are closing in Virginia at 7 p.m. We're watching 3 races in that state. Governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. In New Jersey, polls are closing at 8 p.m. Voters there are also choosing a new governor. In New York City, polls are closing at 9 p.m. And in California, polls close at 11 p.m. Eastern Time on Prop 50, a pro-Democrat redistricting plan. Make sure you tune in tonight at 7 p.m. to get the latest election results with live analysis from reporters and on-the-ground teams. NTD's Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer will bring you more on the special live coverage for the biggest races tonight. So tune in to NTD, and that's at 7 p.m. Eastern only right here. Don't miss it. Democrat redistricting is on the ballot in California today, and Maryland has become the latest to consider redrawing state congressional maps. We have more after this break.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person, and I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. You won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, and being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
My name's Stacy, I'm 57, and I was adopted in 2020.
We were adopted in 2019.
And we were adopted in 2021.
We had a house, and it sounds crazy, but it wasn't a home. The one thing that Jake and Emma brought is it became a home.
When I met Dakota, he had just turned 14.
You weren't there for the first this and the first that. I missed the first words, but we got a lot of other firsts.
Watching her say, oh my God, I cannot believe I got my license. And she's like, I passed. And I'm like, girl.
See them grow. It is.
They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
You and you.
Kids in the middle. What I thought was a complete life was nowhere near complete, but it is now.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around. And I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Democrat redistricting is on the ballot today. Millions of voters across California will cast their ballots to weigh a plan known as Proposition 50. If successful, it will likely allow Democrats to gain 5 more seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. California Governor Gavin Newsom and state Democrats pushed through the redistricting plan over the summer in response to Texas's move to redraw its maps. Missouri, North Carolina, and Ohio also recently redrew their congressional maps. More states, including Florida, Illinois, Louisiana, and Maryland, among others, are considering similar options. Around 60% of likely voters planned to support the proposition, according to a recent Berkeley poll. Former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger criticized the measure, saying they're trying to fight for democracy by getting rid of the democratic principles of California. President Donald Trump weighed in on Truth Social. The president posted, quote, The unconstitutional redistricting vote in California is a giant scam in that the entire process, in particular the voting itself, is rigged. And Maryland has become the latest state to enter the tit-for-tat between Republican and Democrat-led states over control of the House. Maryland's Democratic Governor Wes Moore announcing today that he's forming an advisory commission to consider redrawing state congressional maps. It comes on the same day that California residents will vote on a ballot initiative to redraw congressional districts in a way that would be more favorable for Democrats. Texas Republicans were successful in their recent effort to redraw maps to benefit the GOP. Nearly $2 billion from foreign sources donated to back left-wing groups and policies in the United States. At least one of the foreign organizations is connected to the Chinese Communist Party. That's according to a new report. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has more.
Protests for green energy, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and other social justice policies like anti-immigration enforcement, bankrolled by foreign money. A nonpartisan report uncovered 5 foreign charities funneling money to left-wing groups. One called the Children's Investment Fund Foundation has ties to the Chinese Communist Party.
We were able to trace that over $550 million in foreign money has come from his UK-based charity into US-based organizations.
550. That is a third of the entirety of Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. Right.
Another group called the Oak Foundation has contributed at least $8.2 million to a center that funds protests to abolish ICE, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. While the United States technically has laws preventing foreign nationals and governments from giving money directly to campaign PACs and candidates, grassroots advocacy on big policy disputes flies under the radar.
You cannot win without all these outside groups that are the 501c3s and the 501c4s. You cannot tell me you can win today without C3s and C4s on the outside. Guess what's not regulated by the FEC?
Yeah.
Issue advocacy campaigns, voter education, protests. So there's these huge loopholes on the state and federal level.
Her group, Americans for Public Trust, is working to get the loopholes closed. Today in Michigan, Sutherland will testify to support a bill to do so. Some states are already working to stop foreign adversaries from purchasing land or contributing to state ballot issue campaigns. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
2 Massachusetts men were taken away in handcuffs this morning in connection with an explosion at Harvard University Medical School. We have more news after this break.
I didn't ask to lose my mother or to be abused at 5 years old. I didn't ask to be kicked out of my house with nowhere to go. I didn't ask for any of this. But I did ask for help, and Covenant House was there. Thanks to their love and support, and to generous people like you, I got what I needed to take control of my life.
For the young people who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations, Covenant House is there providing safety, hope, and a brighter future. Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. 1 in 10 young adults will experience homelessness this year. Your gift can help reach them when they need it most.
I didn't ask for my parents and my family to disown me. I didn't ask to end up in a homeless shelter. The beauty of it all is that I found Covenant House.
The need is overwhelming, but your monthly support will make sure no young person is ever turned away. Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today. If there's no Covenant House, where would I be today?
Your monthly gift is urgently needed to reach young people in communities like yours who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations. Show them they're loved and not alone. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
We said we'd never give in to a meltdown.
Okay.
And we'd never babysit with a screen. We said we'd never let the toys take over.
Mariella!
Never leave the house looking, well, and never let them out of our sight.